guys, my name is Dakota and I am a wedding photographer in Wilmington, North Carolina, and today I want to talk to you about all of the different things that you should think about when it comes to seasons when you are planning your wedding. So I actually got this idea when I was meeting with one of my future brides, and she's already picked her venue, and so she's kind of starting to think about what her timeline is going to be. And she asked me what I thought as far as like what she should expect for getting married in February, what time she should have her ceremony. So we started talking about all of the different things that come along with having your wedding in February. Most of them she knew, and then some of them she hadn't considered yet. And so I had the thought that maybe a lot of you guys, if you are planning your weddings, you have a season that you have in your mind, but maybe you haven't considered all of the different things that come along with that season. And as somebody who lives and breathes the wedding industry, I just wanted to let you know some of the things that I have seen that should be taken into account when you are planning your season of your wedding. So if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up down below and then also subscribe so you can get more video content about planning weddings. Okay, so we can jump in with, technically I'm going to count it as the first season because I guess it could kind of be considered wedding season, even though now I don't know if it's just recently changed or if it's always been this way, but I kind of feel like wedding season is almost all year round, or at least there's peak seasons throughout the year, but kind of spring is the first thing that you think about when you are thinking actual wedding season. And that could possibly be because everything is in bloom, the flowers are very colorful, everything's kind of new and fresh, and so maybe that's why we think spring, we think weddings, because everything's going to be new marriages and new relationships and stuff like that. But when you are planning a wedding in the spring, at least in eastern North Carolina, kind of all over North Carolina, you want to be thinking about all of the colors that are going to be included. It's very bright, a lot of pastels you can make happen, and also a lot of greenery. If you're somebody who likes all of those things, I tend to kind of surround myself with bright things and bright colors, then the spring would probably be a really good color palette for you. Then when we're thinking about some of the other awesome things about having your wedding in the spring, it's pretty close to summer, so that way when you're on your honeymoon, you can kind of, if you plan it right, you can basically go have your honeymoon, come back, and then also have your summer vacations and being able to go to the beach, so you're closer to having a tan. And even though there's a lot going on this spring with graduations and other family things, usually people are pretty aware that this is going to be a time where weddings are going to be happening. You also usually have pretty moderate weather. People love spring because it's finally the time where we can stop being cold, which in North Carolina is really like, you know, a good 45, 50 degrees, which is nothing compared to our friends in the Midwest and the North. But it's a time where everybody's really excited because it's going to be a lot nicer outside than it has been, and so you have a chance of not completely sweating your butt off, but then also not freezing either. However, something to think about when it comes to the weather, especially in Wilmington or any kind of the coastal areas, is that it rains a lot in the spring. That's probably like, duh, Dakota, we know that it rains all the time, but I cannot tell you how many shoots that I've had to reschedule for rain in the spring, and then also just like, I mean, obviously like April showers bring May flowers, so it still rains in May though, so just something to think about, that you are definitely going to need to have a rain plan in the spring if that's when you're going to get married. Also, this is a minor thing, and I don't really think it's something that you should plan your wedding around, but with all of the rain, it just kind of made me think of the fact that like people have a lot of allergies. There's also pollen everywhere. Everything's going to be yellow, so I mean, probably not the biggest thing to take into account when you're planning your wedding, but also just something to know that like there's going to be pollen, there's going to be some sneezing. I don't know. If that's not something that you like and that's going to bother you all day because your eyes are going to be watering, then maybe you should take it into account. Also, the biggest thing when it comes to spring is that is when the time changes. So a time, at least this year, it's going to be changing around March 10th or on March 10th. And so you can expect it to be around that time every year. So if you're getting married before then, obviously the sun is going to be setting an hour earlier than it will be after then. So if you are kind of trying to decide between having a first look or not having a first look, your portrait time is going to be very much limited if you're getting married before the time change. And that's just because if you want to have your ceremony at 5 o'clock, but the sun is going to be setting at 6 o'clock because the time hasn't changed yet, then we basically have like 30 to 45 minutes of sunlight for the ceremony. And then if you think about that, that's really only 15 minutes to get family pictures in, bridal portrait pictures in, and then also your newlywed portraits, which to me are the most important pictures of the entire day. So if portraits are really important to you, whether they are with your new husband or if they are with your family and your bridal party, then that's definitely something to think about when you are planning the actual time of your ceremony if you are getting married in the spring before that time change. No matter what time of year you're getting married, you definitely want to make sure that you have enough time after the ceremony, depending on when the sun is setting. But that's something that I feel like photographers are so in tune with, like when the sun rises and when the sun sets, and also when all the flowers bloom. And I've become I'm not a gardener, but I definitely know a lot about, what's the word for horticulture? That's the word for gardening and things like that. But anyways, I feel like I've learned a lot about that, and I now follow the sun cycle. So just something to think about. Talk to your photographer about that so that you guys can work out something within your timeline that makes the most sense. Okay, great. So moving on to summer, which I love summer because obviously I live by the beach, so I try to spend as much time in the ocean as possible. And I love the colors that come along with summer, we kind of transition from pastel colors to really bold, bright, summery colors. So if that's very much your style and you love that, to me it's very southern. When I think about summer, southernness kind of comes along with that. I don't know if that's weird or if that's... It's also the time of year where people are planning on taking vacations. So if you are going to do a destination wedding or you have a lot of people coming from out of town, it's a lot easier to make that happen during the summer, just because coming from someone who used to kind of work in the corporate world, things are a little lax during the summer because it's not Q4 where everyone's trying to make sales, and it's not Q1 where everyone's trying to like hit their goals for the first part of the year. So it's a little more relaxed because people are taking vacations, especially with their kids. So it's definitely something to keep in mind if you are going to do some type of destination wedding. Summer's probably a good place for you. Also, when we were talking about the sun, for the summer, the sun sets really, really late. So you have no worries if you want to have a later ceremony and then also get plenty of portraits. The sunsets are beautiful. You essentially have all day long to get as many pictures as possible because you have all of that light. So that's something that is really awesome about being in the summer. However, it's going to be hot. It's going to be really hot. I know everyone talks about this, and yet people still, I feel like, book their weddings at the end of summer, beginning of August, and they are still kind of surprised about how hot it's going to be outside, especially if they're having an outside wedding. It's going to be hot. We're going to sweat. You're going to need to make sure that you pick the right dress for that. And then also, please help out your poor bridesmaids and your groomsmen by knowing that if you're going to have them be getting married outside and they're wearing sports coats or wearing tuxes, that it's going to be a doozy. I love summer weddings, but sometimes it is just very hot. And so I've run into a situation so many times where brides haven't necessarily prepared their bridal party to be taking pictures outside, or have chosen a venue that doesn't provide a ton of shade and a ton of opportunity for us to be outside and not sweat. So if you are getting married in the summer, I would definitely look at the venue specifically to find something that has some shade and has areas outside that you can go outside, get some fresh air, but also not necessarily be right in the sun. I had a friend one time who got married on the golf course, and it was beautiful. It was an extremely hot wedding. It was in the middle of July. However, immediately after the ceremony, they rushed us all upstairs to this beautiful kind of like veranda balcony area that the whole thing had a roof over it. And so it was hot outside, but it was so much better and so much easier to be outside, all of us drinking our beers and our wine with underneath the shade, and the sun was still shining, but not directly on us. So just something to think about. And then when we move into fall, which I kind of consider wedding season round 2, if you would consider the spring round 1. The fall has become extremely popular for people to plan their weddings, and I can completely understand why. It's beautiful outside. There's just something about the fall that I feel like is very exciting and very energizing. I love the colors of fall. They're a little bit more muted than the ones during summer. You can still bring in some bright things, but then for the most part, like, we've got those really warm tones that are always really beautiful. There's, especially if you're in the South, there's the cotton and all of the plants that are being harvested around you. Along with the spring, the fall also very much has moderate weather and things that you can expect as far as things are cooling off instead of warming up. I tend to like the fall weather better than the spring weather just because I like a good like warm day with a cool fall night. And so if that's something that you want for your wedding, then that's obviously a really good season for you to have it in. But it also is important to know that we live in the South where the weather just doesn't like to cooperate with us most of the time. And so just like with the spring, there's chances of raining, there's chances of it randomly being 40 degrees outside when it's the middle of October and we thought it was going to be really hot. Maybe it was 72 the day before. So it's just something to think about, that it doesn't always go the way that you want planned, but if it does, then it is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful weather. It is football season, it is hunting season, and so if you are in the South, then that is something that you definitely want to think about. Even I guess if you're in the North too, that's probably something to think about. But people are going to be at football games or having really important tickets that they've bought for the games, or they're, maybe they've planned big hunting trips, or maybe they haven't even planned a trip at all, but they are just going to be really stubborn about the fact that that's something that they want to go do. So just something to think about if you are either marrying someone who that's really important to them, or you come from a family that's really important, or if your guests find that really important to them. Then also along with the fall, very similarly to the spring, we have another time change. So if you want to get that extra bit of light after the ceremony, then it's best to plan your wedding before the time change. If you plan it after the time change, there's not a huge worry. It's just that you're going to need to start your ceremony earlier so that way you can get more light after your ceremony. You're either going to have to do a first look so that you can get the majority of your portraits before the ceremony, which is a fine choice as well, or you need to find a photographer who is very skilled in using off-camera flash so that way they are able to still get really nice portraits of you after the wedding. And then you need to be okay with the fact that the portraits of the two of you guys as your newlywed couple are going to be with flash and not necessarily with that bright, light, airy feel. So then moving on to wintertime, which I feel like is starting to get a little bit more popular than it used to be. I will be honest, I used to always say that I would never want to get married in the winter, and now that I have seen some of the things that winter brides are doing, I am like, okay, I can get behind that. I really like that. So depending on where you're at, obviously the scenery is going to change. Most of the leaves will have fallen off of the trees. If you're in somewhere like Wilmington, things actually don't really change that much around here. It gets a little less green, but for the most part, because we're so close to the ocean, most of the trees maintain their greenery, and a lot of the venues around here have specifically made their landscaping so that it does stay green all year long. But if you like the look of kind of like, I don't want to say dead trees, but it's kind of dead. It's very minimalistic. It's very like rustic looking. Then that is also the wintertime is going to be a good scenery for you. Plus you have the holidays, which we all love, Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. And so if those are something that are really close to your heart, then that's a really good time to kind of bring those themes into the wedding. I love the people that have used Christmas and the Christmas colors. I love a good like cranberry maroon mixed with some really dark greens. And so that's a really awesome thing that you can do for Christmas. And then I love the idea of doing a New Year's wedding because everyone's going to be out and like wanting to be out partying and celebrating anyways. And so the thought of being able to do it at a wedding where everything is, quite as a guest, everything's paid for. And so it would be so fun for me to be invited to one of those. So, and then just thinking about all of the gold and the silver and the pink and I don't know. If you're thinking about doing a New Year's wedding, hit your girl up because I would definitely like to come to that. In the winter, you also have a lot more bold colors, so you can do a lot of light things still, but you also have the opportunity to bring in some of those darker jewel tones, which are always beautiful, especially if they're paired with something that is light and has a bunch of white coming in or light coming in. And so it really just like kind of provides that pop and it's very elegant. And then if you're lucky enough to be somewhere where it is snowing, funny that I say lucky enough because really I'm very glad that I don't live somewhere where it snows very often, but if it does snow on your wedding day, then those portraits are just so beautiful because you get to bring everybody outside. That is a natural reflector, so your skin tones are going to be beautiful and it's just going to be like a ton of bright color. I love it. And then of course the obvious things about getting married in the wintertime is that it's going to be cold, so you're going to have to think about choosing a wedding dress that's going to fit with that type of temperature. Your guests are always going to be cold too, but I mean, people go out during the wintertime, so it's fine. I wouldn't be too concerned with that. And then the other thing is that the sun sets really, really, really early. So if you're thinking about getting married in the wintertime, I know I've talked about it with all of the other seasons, but it is so important to think about what time your ceremony is going to be and then the things that you want to prioritize. Because if you do not do a first look and you are getting married in the wintertime, then your portraits are going to have to be with flash. And if that's okay with you, then that's fine. I definitely prefer portraits that are used with natural light and not necessarily flash. I would like to have some portraits that were with flash because it's a little bit dramatic and it's just kind of a different look, but I would rather have both of them than only have one type and it be the type that I'm not totally into. So if you feel the same way, then I would think about that, talk to your photographer about what time you want to start the ceremony, really, really consider having a first look so that you have kind of that balance and that opportunity to get both types. And then just also think about the fact that if you do want to get married in a church that's got a bunch of light coming in from the window or a venue that's got light coming in from the windows, then the sun is going to set a lot earlier than what it would say in the summer or the fall. And so if you don't want to have a super early wedding, then you will need to plan on having a lot of uplighting and lights brought into the venue so that way things can be lit up. So those are all of the things that came to mind when I was thinking about the different seasons and my experience with shooting weddings in those seasons or having friends who did get married at those times. If you are a bride and you are planning your wedding right now, then I would definitely do research, ask around to other people that have gotten married in these seasons just so that you're not feeling blindsided by anything or that you forgot anything and you can feel completely confident in picking the season that you want to get married in. And you can also subscribe to my channel where I will be posting lots more videos for brides who are planning their weddings with everything that you need to know that I've learned over the years is helping my brides plan their weddings and then also being there and photographing them on the day of. Wedding planning can definitely be stressful, but it is supposed to be fun, so I hope you're not stressing yourself out. And if you have any questions specifically about wedding days, I am here to help. All right, bye guys.